Welcome to the Goddesses of Social Work podcast, hosted by Renita Ray Davis, licensed clinical social worker, board-approved social work clinical supervisor, and facilitator of the Goddesses of Social Work supervision community. Join us as we travel through the social work journeys told by the Goddesses of Social Work community members, past and present, as they make their way toward clinical licensure.
Welcome to the Goddess of Social Work podcast. I'm your host, Renita Ray Davis, and I'm here today with Quineshia Evans, LMSW. Quineshia Evans received her bachelor's degree in criminal justice with a minor in English from Alabama A&M University. She also earned her master's degree in social work and community mental health from Alabama A&M University. She has experience working with court-ordered youth, children, and adolescents addressing substance abuse, the aging population, and school social work. She is now a licensed master social worker and takes pride in developing cultural awareness with vulnerable populations. She also is a field supervisor for social work and counseling interns and has a passion for outreach and working with diverse populations, all while being a full-time mother to her 3-year-old son, God's greatest gift. Welcome to the show, Quinn.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We're so glad you said yes.
Thank you for inviting me. So that was it.
Absolutely. Quinn, I love that you received both your bachelor's degree and master's degree from HBCU. What was that experience like for you, and were you intentional about attending an HBCU when you were looking for colleges?
Yeah. So at first I wouldn't say it was intentional because I was just applying to all different colleges. But when it was time to just excel and actually go, my final three was all HBCU. So I just felt like it was meant to be. All my friends, we all started our journey at a HBCU, and majority of us went to Alabama A&M. So at first it started off just being curious, like, what is it? Like, we always hear about HBCUs. What is it? So when I started my journey, when I received my bachelor's, it was more of finding myself. And I feel like I would have not done that if I didn't go to HBCU because of the cultural aspect, the community. I felt like it strengthened what I already had inside me. But I wouldn't say when I first started researching, it was intentional because I didn't know about either. But when I got into it, it was like an eye-opening. I became aware of a lot of different things that I wasn't before. The professors were great. They was very like, I would say the difference, it was more of a community aspect where I'm here for you instead of you're on your own, you get it how you get it. But it was like, you can come to me and I get it. So I think it was more of the cultural aspect and learning the different dynamics of literally everything. So I would say it wasn't intentional, but I'm so glad I chose that path.
What was your high school experience like?
I came from a small town, and my graduating class was 75. So it was really small. And my high school life was really good. I graduated valedictorian. But again, it was 75. So going into college in HBCU, it is really, really big and huge. So it was like a cultural shock, as well as like coming from a small town where you know everybody, going to a bigger place where everyone is like different and they dress different, they talk different. And it was like, whoa, this is what I've been missing. So it was really a good shock and a learning shock at the same time because I learned from so many different friends that look like me and doesn't look like me. Because at first I did have a mindset because I was closed in where I was believing that everyone was raised like me, that looked like me. We went through the same cultural aspect, but we did not. That was the total opposite of it. And just learning different things and becoming aware of other people's cultural differences just opened me up to so much more. And coming from a small town, that really gets me excited because I became open to a lot of different things after I attended college.
Absolutely. I guess I was asking that too, because even though it was 75 of you guys, and it's so beautiful actually. But even though it was 75, I wondered, was it racially diverse in your small town?
It was
No?
not.
Okay. So were there people who looked like us that you went to?
Yes, it
Okay.
was I would say a 1% Caucasian, but majority African American students.
So even though you were raised in a mostly African American environment, going to an HBCU, not even intentionally, that
Mhm.
expanded your world even
Yes.
more because we all don't look alike.
Yes, it expanded. Like I had experience in like going different places and trips with my family, but you really don't get to know people until you sit down and actually have conversations with them. So being in classes with my race and other races, it was interesting to learn about all the different things that we do alike and we do differently because it just was like, oh, I did that at home. Oh, I never heard of that before. So I'm learning with them and they're learning with me. So it was just amazing to even experience that.
Absolutely. I love that for you. I guess now I
Mm.
want to know because here you are in from this small town
In the
and you
South.
start in the South and you started you had, you got your bachelor's degree in criminal justice. So you didn't go to Alabama A&M to get a social work degree.
Nope.
And so I'm curious, like, how did you learn about social work? How did this journey begin for you? What was this like for you?
Yeah. So my journey for social work did not start in high school. It did not start in college because I didn't really get into social work until my master's. So all in high school from grade 3, I was dreaming ambitious to be a lawyer. I wanted to become a lawyer. I was thinking about justice, fighting for people, people that I've noticed and witnessed so much stuff in my hometown. And I wanted to be that pinpoint where I go back and help my community and make sure that we get justice for things that go get swept under the rug. So that was my strong desire. So when I went to receive my bachelor's, I went into criminal justice and English. I was just so on it. I had my mind made up. So when graduation time came, I had this one professor, and he was like, "What do you want to do? Like, do you really know?" And honestly, I didn't. I always said, "Oh, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a lawyer." What type of lawyer? I just kept saying it. And I never really sat down and figured out what I actually want to do. I was receiving a bachelor's degree. I earned it. I did the work. But what was I going to do after school? I didn't have a clue. I knew I was smart. I just knew I was like, well, maybe I'll do probation and parole. He was like, well, do your research with law and see if that's what you want to do. So I did my research and I was thinking about Cumberland. I was thinking about like all the different tests you have to take. And I noticed where it's expensive. I was like, I may not be able to work and go to school like I'm doing now. So he was like, well, I'm glad you came back with you did a lot of research. I'm glad you came back and you found some answers. He said, have you ever thought about social work? And I was like, no, I never thought about social work. And he was like, he started explaining to me what social work is. He started encouraging me, like, you can do a lot with social work. So, me, I'm going into like, okay, I have no idea where my path is going to be. I always know that I wanted to make a difference. I want to make a positive impact. I wanted to advocate. And all the things that I'm telling him, he's like, well, that's social work. And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So, that is when I was like, he got my attention and he was telling me about therapy, how I love to talk to people, how he noticed I interact with people and how I encourage them to do these different things. He was like, put that into action. Put that into what you have now. Put it into your work life. So that is how I changed my mind and jumped into social work. And that was the best decision of my life. This I really feel like this is the field for me. At first, that wasn't the case. I had to go through a couple different things to really feel and understand, like, yes, I had those struggles, but what am I here for? So that is how I got into social work. So my social work journey is a whirlwind. I started off in residential. Do not recommend for me. I always tell myself I don't know what I like until I try it. So residential is not for me. And then immediately after residential, I went into substance abuse, which I liked for the time being. I just did not like going into the homes and traveling because I hate driving. So I kept with you don't know what you like until you keep trying. So that kept me on my toes. So once I figured out what I didn't like, I changed my career path, and that's when I went into Oasis Counseling, which is a counseling agency, and I was the intake coordinator there. So I was there for about 2 years, and during those 2 years, I was like, I'm gonna take my test. And my first try, mind you, I took it 3 times. My first try, I failed, devastated, all you could think about, overthinking. I don't know what I'm doing. Do I not know the material? Just like, I'm not taking this again. I felt all those different emotions. I felt defeated. I gave up a couple of times, but I had my clinical director. She was the best. She was like, "You're good. You know your stuff. Try again. Like, what are you doing? Why are you so hard on yourself?" And I was like, "I just don't know." Then, even with taking it the first time, I was so anxious. My anxiety was so high. I was so nervous. Like, stomach was upset, hands were shaking, and I did not know like what to do. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try this again. I got it. I was boosting myself up, going hard, like, self-care this, do this. And I was doing so much different things. I was trying to get my mind right, get myself together. I was still nervous the second time I went in, but I still took it. I knew the steps. I knew what to expect when I got there. But I just still wasn't in the place to take it. So my first try, I failed 8 points. My second try, I failed 4 points. And you would think that you would not feel those same feelings that you felt the first time. They would be a little less. They were more intense than before. I cried my eyes out. I felt like a failure. And I just was like, what am I doing wrong? And to my conclusion, I felt like my external life, my personal life, I wasn't choosing me. I was choosing everything around me but myself. I was doing everything for everybody else but myself. And recently, I switched all that up. I left a long-term relationship where I thought I needed. I started getting closer with God because I felt like I wasn't close enough to the point where I I prayed, but I didn't feel like I prayed enough. I knew him, but I feel like I didn't know him enough to hear me. So I went through a lot. I did a bunch of transitions with myself. I started back going to church because I had a big thing about church life. I wasn't putting nothing, I was putting everything above me and before me. So when I started choosing myself, everything just started to look different, feel different. I walked different. I was confident in myself again. And it got to a point where, like, I'm ready to take the test again. I scheduled for it. I studied and I prayed on it. I took the time out for me and then I passed. I passed probably like 10 to 11 points over the mark. And when I got the test results, I didn't know what to do. I was in disbelief. I was just sitting there in my car and I was like, whoa, And I felt a relief off my shoulders because I kept putting myself in this category that I'm a failure. I don't know. And I knew the material. I didn't know how to apply the material, and I wasn't taking care of myself. So I passed. Until to this day, it still feel like it's foreign because I never thought I would be in this position where I'm a LMSW. Like I wear it proudly now. And it still feels strange. It still feel weird. But I'm owning it now. I'm not scared to say it. I walk around like I'm the baddest social worker there is. But I always have to remember, like, those struggles that I went through, it got me here. And I feel like if I didn't go through it, I would never be here. No matter if it was personal or work experience, if I didn't go through those struggles, I don't think I would have appreciated where I am now. So that's why it's just so hard. And I always look back like this is where I belong. This is me. I know I just said a whole bunch, but this is
That,
me.
that was an incredible story. That was, and congratulations. I have
Thank
so
you.
many questions, and I'm probably only going to ask three. I have
Okay.
so many questions. I'm thinking about the fact that you were valedictorian in your
Mhm.
high school and jumping all the way ahead to it took three times to pass the test. Those two energies of being the
Yep.
smartest person in your community and then feeling like you said, you said it, I felt like a
Yep.
failure. And I'm just wondering, how did you live in both of those worlds, knowing that you had on your wall valedictorian, but then
Yep.
also it took three times to pass this test? And I think it's important to talk about this
Yeah.
because so many people are struggling to pass the test and they know they're smart and they know they have the material too. And so, or they know the material as well. So, what was it like knowing you were the smartest person in your community? And then, yeah, it still took the three times. And how did you process those two things?
Yeah. It was a tug and war. I was pulled to the side like, what am I doing wrong? Am I approaching it wrong? And at first, it was so more, I was looking at the aspect of the material. And that's what took was so hard on myself because I kept was saying, like, you don't know. If you failing this, you just don't know. And that part was the hardest part to get over because I started believing like I did not know. And I was like, whoa. So I was still like I stopped the first time I took the test. And another thing, when I first took the test, I was telling everybody I took the test. And I feel like their anxiety and their anxiousness and them questioning me 100 times a day. Did you study? Did you study for the test? Did you take a quiz? Did you do this? Did you do that? And I think I was like, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. I'm taking their scaredness, them being afraid with what I'm already dealing with. So I feel like it was a tug and war of the materia of me not knowing and taking on that and convincing myself that I don't know. And then that failure part came in. I'm smart, but why are you failing? How did you how did you fail? So I had to battle myself for a long time trying to prove to myself that I know my stuff. I know social work material. I am a social worker. So I had to just look in the mirror and be like, okay, what's different? What we need to what we need to work on first. So I started working on like the behavior aspect of it, the assessment aspect of it. I'm passing all the quizzes. So, what's next? If it's not the material, what is next? It's me. I'm afraid, and I was scared to say that I was afraid to take the test. I also was I knew I had anxiety. I had anxiety all through school. I just I didn't know what it was. So I had to address that. I got into therapy. And we was addressing me being afraid, me feeling like a failure, me being a failure, how scared I was being a failure. not wanting to let my mom down, not wanting to let my community down. So many different aspects was on me all at one time. And I was thinking about so much stuff. Why I had a reason why I should pass, and it wasn't the correct reason. It wasn't for me. So that's why I was like, I was thinking about everybody else. I was thinking about the image I would have if I had LMSW behind my name. And then I was thinking about what people would say if they found out that I failed 3 times. So it was so much different things. And I was like, wait, why should I care about whatever everybody else is thinking? So I think the academic piece came first with knowing that you know the material, but you convince yourself that you didn't. And then figuring out, who am I? Who is Quinn? And then being able to be like, I know this, let me go take it and then pass. So I would say it was a tug of war at first because I was lying to myself. I was telling myself stories. I was being this person that I didn't even recognize anymore. And we here.
Yes. Quinn Evans, LMSW. We're definitely
Yes.
here. Yes. I love that you said that you had to stop telling people. I tell people that all the time, especially before they even take the first time.
Mhm.
Like, don't tell any, even the most well-meaning people who you think are rooting for you, they
Yep.
will project their anxiety, their fear, their
Yes.
concern onto you. And so even my folks, I'm like, don't tell me, just tell me when you pass.
Yep.
Don't
I
tell me when you're
agree.
taking it, just tell me when you pass. And so the fact that you learned that lesson, albeit the hard way, but you did learn that lesson. But
Yep.
I also, some of my favorite social workers are social workers who are in therapy. And so the
Mhm.
fact that you went to therapy to one, before you got to LMSW, you've already had the experience of being in therapy. So you know what it's like to
Yep.
sit on the other side of the table. And that's a big deal. I
Mhm.
think it's so important that we all know what it's like to sit on the other side of the table.
I
So,
agree.
yeah, so you know it works. And so you don't feel like an imposter or a fraud when you're talking to your clients because you know that it worked for you. So,
Yep.
those are the two things I wanted to say about that. But going back to my 3 questions. So
Mhm.
you were at Oasis for 2 years before you decided to take the exam. And so I guess I was wondering, like, some people, MSW, there's a lot of credibility in just the MSW. You can get jobs, you can enjoy the work you're doing. You never, ever, ever have to
Mhm.
take the test. What, after 2 years at Oasis, made you decide to take the test?
So my first year, it was my clinical director. She, when I say motivated me, she was like, "Why are you not taking it? Like, what are you doing?" And I was like, "I don't know." The whole time I was scared for my life. I didn't want to fail. So I was scared. And then I took it. And then that was the 8 points. And then the next, I took it like you get those 90 days where you can take it again. And I took it like right after I failed the first time. And then it took me almost another year this year to take it again. And I want to say my clinical director when I say she was the best of the best, she motivated me. She was like, you know it. Okay. You failed. Okay. So what? Do it again. And I'm like, ah. Is it that easy? It's easy said and done, but it was because I did know the material. And I feel like if she didn't push me to my full potential, I would have never taken that exam. And she was doing therapy, and I always looked up to her, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I don't want to just do intake coordinator. I don't want to be an intake counselor. I don't want to just do the basic. I want to go into therapy. I want to listen to my clients. I want to make a difference, even if it's just one little thing in their life. And in order for me to do that, I need my license. So that what started that journey.
I love that. And I love that you said, because you know that I do a little prayer before we
Mhm.
start. And one of the things I always thank the people who came before us, who laid the path for us to be here. And there's 2 people so far in your story that you've mentioned, your clinical director and your professor, who told you about social work. And so I
Yep.
just want to say their names and shout them out and just thank them because you are an amazing social worker.
Thank
And
you.
had they not been pushing you, we wouldn't be sitting here right now.
We
So
wouldn't.
shout those two people out for us.
It was Kenneth Whitman and Shanita Hinton.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
I know,
They are amazing.
thinking about what you said, what was the professor's name?
Kenneth Whitman.
Whitman. Thinking
Mhm.
about Mr. Whitman, was he a social worker? Because I'm always curious about people who push folks into the field who was he wasn't a social worker, but
It
he
wasn't.
just,
He was
yeah,
my criminal justice teacher,
awesome.
my professor, and he knew about social work. I'm not sure if he wanted to go into social work, but he was Dr. Kenneth Whitman. He was amazing. I know at one point he was in law enforcement, but he was not a social worker, and he knew all about it. And it was like, you should do this. I this is the path you need to take. You can do such and such, such and such, or you can do this. He knew, and he has so like inspired me so much, and he was one of my favorite professors. So he could tell me I could be an airplane pilot, and I would go for it. So I listened to everything he said. I'm not sure if he knew, but he had so much over me, like to the point where you can encourage me to do anything, and I was gonna step through that path.
I love that. And I love that you said Dr. Whitman because we want to make sure we give him all of his letters.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I, you know, I hope that she send this to him and that because I think it's important. I know that I love to hear from my former supervisees, my former
Yeah,
students, how well they're doing and what, even if it was a small impact, what impact I may have had in their lives. So I hope that you'll send this to him
I
so that
sure
he will
will.
know that we shouted him out and we are so
Yes,
grateful that he got you on this trajectory and your clinical director
most
because
definitely.
because I think that's going to be my last question. I think I said three, but maybe I never stick to what I say. What was it your clinical director and what was her name again?
Shanita Hinton.
Miss Hinton, what was it? Was it just her or was there something in you? Because people will hear this story, have tried to take this test, have not passed. You're a freaking valedictorian and had to take it multiple times. What was it that didn't allow you to give up? Because that's what I wanted. I want to just
Mhm.
encourage people not to give up on this thing.
I wanted more for myself, and I think the drive of me wanting to get to my ultimate goal of social work would push me. I don't want to just do I'm this big person. I'm this person where I don't want to do the bare minimum. I don't want to be the bare minimum. I want to go over and beyond, and I want to keep going. I want to go so far where is nowhere else to go. And I think that what pushed me, but she just brought it out of me. Like I always had that drive, but she was there to be like, girl, you got this, do it. Like, why not? And I always have that drive, but I just want to reach beyond the stars. And she helped that come out, and I just ran with it.
Absolutely. So thank you. Thank you to her as well. And I love people like that. I hope that I'm one of those people
Yes.
who pushes people to reach the stars and or at
Yeah.
least go for the moon and land among the stars. I think the stars are so pretty. Yeah. Oh man, you
Yes.
know what? I love that you wanted to become a lawyer, and I know I'm always encouraging you guys to like get your clinical license and see what that does for you. But hearing your story, I almost want to be like, there's an MSW JD program out there,
Hmm.
right? Okay.
Hmm.
So that even as you're working on your clinical, there's still these opportunities for
Yeah.
you to get that JD if you so wanted to. But also, Dr. Whitman,
Yep.
he was right. As a social worker, we are social justice advocates. We're
Yep.
on Capitol Hill. We are policy advocators and change makers. And so you don't have to get the JD, but because you are so
Yeah.
smart, I would, and I hope that I am one who gets to encourage you to do that as well. All right.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go? I just told you what I want for you, but what what are your plans within this field?
My plan, I always wanted to go back into my hometown and open up some type of residential facility or agency where I always talked about it. I just because we drive far to receive services, and most of us don't believe in mental health. So I want to be that person where I introduce them to something new. I make it a big deal. I want to open up some place where they can receive outpatient services like therapy. I have friends that are a speech therapist in logistics, or RN. So I'd be thinking about like we come together, open up this facility, have all these resources in our hometown and make the biggest difference that there ever was. So I want to go there and start there and just move up because it's a lot of in my Black community where we still don't believe in mental health. We're thinking, oh, the child is just acting out, or they're okay, they just hyper, and the stigma on that. So I want to bring psychoeducation down there to open up to what is mental health. And there's already a stigma on mental health and changing the word. But if we educate ourselves on what it is and just live in it and sit in it, I feel like we could just be so much better as a community. So that is my plans where I want to go and to break generational wealth and generational curses and all that good stuff for my kid. And I'm just digging in so he won't have to work as hard as I did. He's gonna work hard, but not as hard as I did.
And go far, and go far. You know, what's interesting is you started your social work journey in residential. And you're like, that's not for me. But you want your vision, your dream is to bring some type of residential, all inclusive
Mm-hmm.
service to your hometown. And
Right.
when you were saying that, I was thinking, even those things that we think aren't for us are important
Yep.
parts of the journey to help us get to where we're going.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not for me, but somebody out there is for. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there
I
go a
was talking,
job.
yeah, I was talking to, and I think that's important. I was talking to a social worker a few months ago, and I used to say it all the time, but like I love my kids and I love being around kids. I didn't like working with kids, and so I never ever applied to work with kids. And you got to kind of just know that
Yep.
about you. What is I love working with women. This is why I do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm good at working with women. So why don't I work with the population that I enjoy working
Yep.
with? But there's other social workers who love working with kids. Why am I
Mhm.
going to be miserable in a job where somebody else is going to be thriving?
Exactly.
Right. So I think it's good to know what you like and know what you don't
Mm-hmm.
like and kind of stick to where you are so that you can thrive and let other people thrive in what they're good at.
Yep.
And saying that, I'm going to move on to our next question. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, social work is one of the fastest growing professions in the United States. And what we know to be true is that we are on the front line for some of the toughest crises this nation has faced. Can you give me an example or examples of your frontline experience as a social worker?
For sure. The hardest one that I had was when I was a substance abuse therapist at the Bridge Inc. I was in I was in Bibb County. It was one of the counties that I had to go in and go into the schools or the home or the courthouse. And this particular day, I had a young male around the age 17, was getting ready to turn 18. And outside of the office beside us was his probation officer, and it was me and him. Now we never talked about suicide ideation, but this particular day he was just off. And I was like, "Hey, are you okay?" And he was like, "Nope." I was like, "So you gonna tell me what's wrong?" And I always talk to my kids like we're personal, like what's going on? Like tell me what's going on, or we're gonna sit here and we'll figure it out, or you're not leaving. What we doing? And he was like, "No, Miss Quinn, I'm good." I was like, like I know that you are not yourself. What's going on? And that is when he disclosed to me that he wanted to harm himself and like harm himself. And I was like, okay, so now this is really my first big girl social work job, and I've never had this happen to me. And I immediately started texting my supervisor, and I was like, okay, this is what the student said. And it all was unorthodox. And I was like, hey, are you talking about now? What is it? Like, and describe to me what you're talking about that you want to harm yourself. He was like, no, I want to harm myself right now, kill myself right now in front of you, Miss Gwen, like right now. And I was like, oh, okay. So I knew I couldn't just be like, oh my God, this is what you're trying to do. Like, I knew I couldn't be as scared because I feel like if he didn't want me to know, he would never have told me. He would just have done it. So I feel like he was just reaching out, trying to get some type of help. So we talked about it, and I was like, so how you want to do it? He was like, oh, I basically want to break the window and jump out. And I was like, this window, because it was a window right behind me. He was like, yep, that one. And I'm working hard. I'm texting my supervisor and I'm texting his probation officer because now we need something en route because he have intent, he have a plan, and it was just awful. But I just listened to him and I was like, okay, so what makes you think like that? What started this? When did this start? And I feel as if he wanted someone to hear him out and to listen to him because he was going through so much. He lost his dad, doesn't have a great relationship with his mom. He's living with his grandmother in and out of juvenile detention. So it was a lot on his plate. And everybody that's there to help him wasn't listening. So he felt like he couldn't talk to anybody. So we just sat there and talked for a good second while I'm texting the probation officer. He didn't got an ambulance on the way. We got help coming in. So I was like, when I left and I made sure he was okay, I was like, oh, that scared me, but I got through it and I did it, and my kid is safe. So that was one of where I was like there in the moment. I didn't have no paper, I didn't have no book, I didn't have nothing to read, nothing to go by, but my just knowing. So that was one of the scariest time of my life, but also my kid was safe. So I was good.
Thank you for saving that baby.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's not like the textbooks, is it?
It's not. It's not a 1, 2, 3.
It's not like the textbooks at all. But
It's not.
I love that you shared that story. One, for social workers who may be thinking about coming in the field to know this, like you said, it wasn't even on the treatment plan. It wasn't
Mhm.
anything that you knew was part of his case planning. And here
No.
you are sitting in front of him. And also what I think I loved is your transparency. It scared you. Sometimes
Mhm.
I think as social workers, as therapists, we're just like, oh, it's just another day in the office. But no, the things that we're dealing with folks are scary.
Yeah.
And for you to be able to say, that scared me, it was really scary for me, I think is
Mhm.
important as well. But really, I just want to thank you for the work that you do with
Thank
those
you.
babies. Yeah. Yeah. What is one belief about social work that you started on this journey with that you feel has changed the most?
I would say what social workers make. When I when I first started off, it was like, "Oh, let me offer you this." And I was like, "Okay, I guess." Well, it's more than what I've been making before I got my degree, but now you can't tell me anything. I know my worth. I know how much I'm gonna ask for, advocate for, and if you can't do it, it's just but that was one of the biggest ones, like, social workers don't make any money. And I was like, okay, cool. But I didn't let that stop me. Each job, each year, if I ever change jobs, if you are not paying me more than what I am currently making, I am not coming. So I feel as if it's different now because of us, not because of the market, not because of what they say how much you should make. Starting to advocate for ourselves and demanding to be paid what we are worth because can't nobody else do our job. And that changed a lot from my first job in residential, making $13 for yes, making $13 an hour with sexual reactive males, teens, and behavioral males to being salaried is a big difference from where I started. So it's us. We're advocating and we're demanding it. So that would be the biggest one that is a difference now.
I love that you said that, Quinn, because I had a mentor many, 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 many years ago said, don't pimp the profession, right? Like you would go in and you're like, oh my God, I guess I'll just, like you said, I guess I'll just take
Mm-hmm.
that. Or, you'll ask for something lower because you're not sure of your own value or worth.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be the agencies or the organizations that are going to offer you more.
Nope.
It has to be you saying, no, I'm not going to take that job for 40,000 for $40,000 as a licensed master social worker. I'm going to and demand and require, and I know that there's agencies and organizations out here that are willing to pay me because they need my letters in order for them to get their reimbursement from the federal government. And so let me make sure that I say no to this so that whoever you have come behind me, you might offer them a little bit more, a lot more, so that you can go ahead and get the right person in. And
I
so it
agree.
is absolutely us. It's not on the agencies.
Nope.
Nobody's coming to save us. Nobody on a white horse is coming to be
Yep.
like, oh, let me help you. It has to be you.
It
Each one
is.
of us, each social worker saying, no, I see what the nurses are making. I see
Yep.
what the other people are making. I know you guys have some money there for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Good for you, Quinn. That's a great one. And you are a intern supervisor. And so
Mm-hmm.
this last question, and I really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you. I see you put your minor in English to great use today. So I love that for you. But I also saw that you are a field supervisor for social
Mm-hmm.
workers and counseling interns. So, as social workers are entering the field over the next few years, what advice are you giving your interns?
My biggest advice, and I tell all of them, I started supervising at Oasis, small supervision, but I do it like here on a regular. Be scared and do it anyway. Like if you're scared, okay, so what? Do it again. Do it anyway. That's the only advice that I have because if you don't do it, you would never know. So be scared. Yes, you're scared. I get that. We all are scared at some point, but do it anyway. And now I have that on my screensaver. Every time I get scared, anxious, anything, my screen lock says, be scared and do it anyway. Why not? What could possibly go wrong if I push myself to do something that I am scared of doing? I would never know the outcome, but I would if I do it anyway. So that's what I would leave off with.
I love that. And I think you just gave me a word for myself today. Oh man, okay. I'll be scared to do it anyway. And I'm thinking about an early Goddess of Social Work podcast interview that Gabrielle did.
Yeah,
Her dad used to say, my mom used to say, says this to me still, closed mouths don't get fed,
I
right? So
agree.
if you don't open your mouth and ask, you're not gonna know the answer. It's the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
be scared and do it anyway. So
Yeah.
yes, I needed that for myself today, Quinn. So
Well,
thank you.
good. Right on
Yeah, I
time.
know, right? And I want to speak, because this will be my 26th year in social work. I got my
That's
bachelor's in
amazing.
98 from Auburn and
Mhm.
my master's in social work in 99 from Alabama. So coming up on 26 years this year.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to, even 22 decades later, I can always learn from everybody. And today you just gave me a word that I needed, be scared and do it anyway. And so
Yeah.
even 20 years later, always still learning from everybody who is around you all the
Yes.
time. And that's my final word of wisdom. But what is your final word of wisdom that you would like to leave our audience with today?
You fail, keep going. Like, keep going. Do it again. Keep trying. Because it just may not be your time, and God is going to set you up, and it's going to be right on time. So keep trying and keep going.
Absolutely. And that speaks to your 3-time test
Yep.
taking experience. And I love what you said. And I know I said that was the last question, but I'll just say this little bit. It's almost like even though you took your test this year, you passed it, it's been kind of slow going for you to be able to say Quinn Evans, LMSW, and wear
Mm-hmm.
those letters and those credentials proudly because you really had to put the work in
Yeah.
to do. And so to me, some of my favorite social workers are, yes, those who are in therapy, because we got to be doing self-reflection, but
Mm-hmm.
also social workers who had to swim upstream,
Yeah.
because you are truly able to say, don't give up, because I know if you don't give up, even if you don't get on the first try, you
Yep.
will manifest that goal, that dream, that vision that you have for yourself.
Yep.
So don't give
I
up,
agree.
ladies. Don't
Don't
give
give
up.
up.
Don't give up. And be
Keep
scared
going.
and do it anyway.
Be scared and do it anyway.
I love it, Clem. Thank you so much for coming on the Goddesses of Social Work podcast.
Thank you.
You were such a joy. I hope to have you back on again soon.
Yes, anytime. Anytime.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. We are glad you were here. If you like this episode, please come back to hear more stories of the journeys through social work, and please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. See you next time here on the Goddesses of Social Work podcast.